All right, we're here with Mike Herrera.
Going on, everybody? It's been a while since you and I have done a video. Shortly after July last year, right? That's when I met you in Temecula. You were
Yeah.
there for Dr. Greer's event there.
So I heard you have a new movie coming up.
So two of them, Investigation Alien on Netflix. That was with George Knapp, and they tried to get me to go on there earlier last year. Actually, it was the tail end of 2023, and I kept putting it off because of business. But at the same time, it's like, I want to see what they're doing first before they put anything with what I'm doing, just to make sure that what I am providing is not going to be misconstrued in any way. And then Greer had put out a video with the Cousins brothers that was December, which was Battle for Disclosure. So those were two that came out.
All right, can you go into detail about them, or?
Yeah, so Battle Disclosure was something I remember them filming when I came forward in June of 23. And it was something that they got kind of everybody who came forward. So it was me, DC Long, Eric, and Stephen Digna Jr. were the only four that we did in that video. And then, so that was something that it wasn't necessarily anything new that had been talked about, back in 2023, of course it was, because that's when I came forward. But I don't know why they released it now, but it was just basically the same thing I've always talked about with that experience in 2009. And then Investigation Alien was kind of the same way. So they just kind of took a different approach to talking about it.
There was a Lockheed Martin Aerospace Technology dude that actually came out about the new skins that they have. That I want to believe one of your brothers in arms talked about, the one that was in the wheelchair. They were actually talking about it recently. I don't know if you actually caught that. I'll probably add a clip later, but they were
Yeah, you
actually
could.
discussing that, but not the anti-gravity tech, but the actual skin that can actually change and replicate like a cheetah and all this other thing.
Can we do things like embed the carbon nanotubes to make conductive structure so that information doesn't flow through a wire next to a structure, but literally flows through the structure?
We'll be able to grow or make a structure that, say, is the skin of an aircraft, that inside of that is also contained the sensors or the energy storage or many different multiple functions.
New materials that are on the lab bench right now, they can literally change shape on command. They can become almost a muscular material.
We could have an airplane that optimizes its shape for the different flight conditions it's in.
Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I've heard about some sort of healing technologies that they've been trying to do mechanically, which is, I mean, I have no knowledge of that. I've heard of things like that, but I can't guarantee or, you know, say that they actually exist. I mean, it's possible. I mean, compared to what I've experienced, I know for a fact that nobody thought that was real, but here we are. But I think if they do come out with something like that, if they do integrate that with kind of military or any kind of applications that keep our guys safe, especially if they get hit with an explosive, then I think that would be cool. But, there's just so much stuff that these guys are coming up with. They got some of the best scientists in the world in these teams, so that's probably just a fraction of what they're just putting out compared to the other stuff that's probably way more remarkable than that.
Have you heard about the Make America Healthy Again campaign by, I want to say, JFK Jr., I believe it was?
Yeah,
And they were
Robert
actually
Kennedy.
trying to get rid of all the bioengineered food that they recently added to the, American diet. And I want to say all the preservatives and toxins that are actually in the food, because a lot of people don't even realize that the Food and Drug Administration is called the Food and Drug Administration for a reason.
Yep. Yeah, so Robert Kennedy Jr., or Robert Franklin Kennedy Jr., or RFK Jr., he's the one who's been a big proponent of that, who's being tapped onto President Trump's oncoming administration for the health secretary, which I think is good because the guy's got good intentions, and I think he's very knowledgeable with what he's talking about. Not only that, but the guy's in good shape. The guy practices what he preaches. So I think if they're trying to get rid of preservatives and things like that that are making us sick, I think that's great, because if you go to any other countries like Italy, for example, you can eat the pizza, pasta over there. It ain't going to make you fat and unhealthy like it does here. So I think if they were to take out things that ultimately can work for or work against us, and then all of a sudden our food starts to make us healthier because we're able to eat it, the food quality is better, they're getting rid of all those harmful dyes, pesticides even, I think we have a better chance as a civilization in this country especially to thrive and be healthier and live longer and not be as sick, as I'm drinking aspartame right now too. So
Oh wow, I've heard horrible things.
oh, I know. I've been drinking Diet Coke that's my vice, man. That's like the only thing I've got that's a vice, and it's not a daily thing. It used to be. I used to drink that, every day, all day, and now it's just not so much.
Honestly, I truly hope a lot of people actually catch on to the things that are slowly poisoning them. Like, I want to say recently, I actually heard about a thing that medical doctors, when they actually diagnose people with diabetes, that the criteria is actually very low. Like, they can diagnose you with diabetes without you actually having diabetes, which I
Right.
find very strange.
Well, and they kind of did the same thing with COVID. Oh, do you have a headache? Do you have a little bit of a sniffle? Do you have a cough? Stuff that just regularly, like somebody who would normally get sick, and all of a sudden they try to put a label on it. And look, it's coming out now. Everybody's saying that everybody was played. They're admitting that the whole mask mandate, the 6 feet, 6 foot distance of social distancing, was all fabricated. Well, of course. You look at the people who made all that money, all these people who were read in as far as the pharmaceutical companies, the people who made the vaccines, the ones that invested in those companies, you started getting rich very quick. So they don't do it's the same thing even, and it sucks to say this, but it's the same thing with the cancer industry, because that's what it is, as well as the medical industry. I mean, how many doctors and nurses have literally, you had the doctors that had a problem with it, but then you had the doctors getting paid that didn't have a problem with it. They were going along with the plan. But it's the same thing. Okay, I'll prescribe you medications. I'll get a kickback from the pharmaceutical companies, and then everything's supposed to be honky-dory, but yet that medication is making you dependent. It's making you a lot more sick. It's not something that's going to help you. It gets you dependent on that thing, so you have to take it for the rest of your life, and i.e., you spend your money on it. Or what they really do is, because it's a guaranteed payout, they charge the insurance companies who pay an arm and a leg for that kind of stuff. So it is an industry, and just like cancer, just like chemo, things like that. The rule is a patient cured is a patient lost. That's revenue that they lose out because nobody's sick. Of course, they don't want people healthy. They got a business to run essentially, which is it sucks. But that's the reality we're living in, and there's too many different things out there. People are gonna try to say, "Oh, that's not how it is." Well, everything that I've looked into, everything that I know, doctors and PhDs and professors I personally know have all said the same thing. So either they're full of crap, but yet they left their careers that were paying them so much money because they thought that the ethical part of the industry is now crushed. And there's people still in this industry that are ethical people and great on you. If you get into positions of authority, medical boards or hospital boards or whatever it is, do better and change it. That's what's going to make us better.
So how do you feel about, I want to say, Neurolink and Elon Musk? Because honestly, I've seen a documentary before like this ever existed when I was like slightly younger. And they were sticking wires into bulls to control the actual live animal, like a remote control. So do you think it's a positive or a negative that Elon Musk is actually going forward with the human version of putting essentially a computer into a human's body, which I've already seen personally in old documentary where they were actually controlling full, over 500-pound animals with these wires connected to the brain.
Neurophysicist Dr. Jose Delgado was financed by the Office of Naval Research. In this experiment, the bull is sedated. Electrodes are implanted in its brain. Delgado transmits an electronic impulse to the center of the bull's brain. Delgado has remote control of the animal. Recently released CIA documents refer to the feasibility of remote control of animals, and that special investigations will be conducted toward the application of selected elements of these techniques to man.
I personally think that's a terrible idea. I mean, what sets us apart from anything else in this world, besides consciousness, besides the awareness aspect, it's the free will aspect. We're all born in the same way. We come into this world in the same way. What we do with the opportunities is either what defines us and how we actually succeed. So not everybody's created equal, but not everybody utilizes the same equal opportunities. And so, of course, there's people who take risks and people who don't take risks. Now, I think if you're going to try to take over something or somebody, you're trying to put a Neurolink into somebody's brain and essentially try to mask it as a medical procedure to help with blindness or something like that. Well, what's the caveat? You got cars, for example, you got brand new cars coming out that can be hacked. You got computer systems that can be hacked. You got anything that has a signal that receives and transmits is able to be hacked. So imagine if that was into the bad hands of people who figured out how to do that. I think that would be horrible, because if you're able to control somebody like that and all of a sudden you have evil people with bad intentions that want to try to program somebody or try to get them to do something, I mean, that puts a lot more risk into it. So I think the application to an understanding may be cool, maybe something that's never been done before with a human being, but I think that intentions are going to ultimately breed the outcome of what happens with that kind of technology. And if it's something that can be prevented, cool. Everybody talks about, for example, wanting to help the environment, and they use electric vehicles, but guess what happens? All of a sudden they're catching fire. They're not as, the power grid's not suitable for that kind of technology, So yes, there's good intentions, but there's also some side effects that come from that. And I think if there's people that are able to be tracked, people that are able to be manipulated with that, I think that that's where it's going to be the definition of whether it's going to be right and wrong. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Honestly, truly, I figure they try to market it in a way to where it's a positive. But just like you said, with, bad actors and, even with the whole Charles Manson thing, MK Ultra, it's like, it's basically having a live human that you could basically, they can't control what the Neuralink does, essentially. They can feel like it in their brain, but just like you said, if anyone has like an adapter, a receiver, it's like, can you truly even trust your own self?
Mm-hmm. I know I wouldn't want to have somebody, that would be able to tap into that, and manipulate you, or even get data, like what can they retrieve from that data? What can your location, your biometric signatures, such as, your vitals, whatever it might be. And that's where it kind of gets tricky. So depending on what it's utilized for, and if it is proven, I still, even if it was something positive that was revolutionary, I wouldn't be standing in line to sign up for that. Hell no.
What are your takes on, I want to say, the two recent, I believe they were like terrorist attacks, and they were actually separate, but on the same day, New Year's?
Right. Well, I know the one in New Orleans was terrorist attack. That was obvious with how that happened. That guy was not, he was a smart guy, very educated, very well-written person, but at the same time, he had bad intentions, and look what he did. As far as Matthew in Vegas, there's been some things that have came out for that. Now, there's some stuff coming down the pipeline that's supposed to, disclosure-wise, that's very big. I'm not going to go into it entirely. It's supposed to happen soon. Since that announcement was made, and since there's been meetings happening behind the scenes, I'm not going to confirm or deny that I've been to these meetings. But ever since that have happened is when this drone incursion started happening more frequently as a false flag. And then the Matthew situation, he contacted quite a few people that I personally know trying to break this story open. And the hints he was dropping were in ways that the language was accurate, if that makes sense. It was something that not everybody speaks that language. So if you're read into certain ways, talking in, the way that government people or military or anything like that. So the way he carried himself through that email was legitimate. So, excuse me, I'm just getting over being sick myself. And I haven't been sick in 5 years. So because that happened, think about it. If you have people that come from a similar background, let's say if they were special operations, and they come forward and they're talking about UAPs or anti-gravitic technologies, but then all of a sudden this whole mental health situation that they're trying to turn that into and flip it, that's also going to affect the credibility of anybody coming forward. So do I personally think it was a deliberate attempt to an extent? Yeah, but I'm not 100% positive. I would say that maybe in a sense that it was something completely unrelated to what's about to happen. And maybe it's something that when it does happen, that it's not going to have a lot of effect on those who are helping, if you know what I'm talking about. So I wish I could go into more, but I can't. I just know the one in New Orleans was completely disastrous. That was something that was intentional. The Matthew guy, if he really wanted to kill a lot of people, he could have done it in a lot easier ways. He could have used jerry cans of gasoline with fireworks. He could have used propane tanks. He could have used a bunch of different things to make that explosion a lot bigger. And he used fireworks, and how many fail videos you see of fireworks blowing up every year? Every 4th of July we're coming up to, there's always explosions like that because people don't know what they're doing. And you don't ever hear that there's severe casualties or things like that. Yes, there were people that were hurt, which sucks. And ultimately, he was the one who lost his life. Obviously, the gunshot wound to his head was something prior to the explosion. But it's unless we have all of the facts, which I don't think anybody realistically outside of that investigation has all the facts. There's going to be people who put their perception and what their take is on it, and it, just even myself, my perception of it, I could be completely wrong, but that's what I think. I can't say that it's right. I can't say that until we have all the facts to present it. That Matthew situation is going to be a little bit of a head scratcher. Now, as far as the one in New Orleans, that's obvious. That's case closed in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he had the ISIS flag and everything. So, yeah, that one was pretty, open and shut.
Yep.
Do you want to read the email?
Yep. So this email came in on December 31st at 10:42 a.m. That is Tuesday. He said, in case I do not make it to my decision point or on to the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until 1 January and keep my identity private until then. First off, I am not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. What we have been seeing with drones, he puts that in quotes, he says drones, is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China and the East Coast, but throughout history, the U.S. Only we in China have this capability. Our OPCEN, that's Operations Center, our OPCEN location for this activity is in the box below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they used the balloon for SIGINT and ISR, which are also part of the integrated comms system. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned aircraft. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate. U.S. government needs to give the history of this, how we are employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them and what the way forward is. China is poised to attack anywhere in the East Coast. I've been followed for over a week now from likely Homeland or FBI, and they are looking to move on me and are unlikely going to let me cross into Mexico, but won't because they know I am armed and I have a massive V-bid. Let me pause right there for a second. So he says a massive V-bid. When I was talking to the FBI yesterday, they didn't know what a V-bid was. I had to explain what that acronym meant, literally.
You fucking serious? Dead
serious. I said it twice, and he goes, you said that word V-bid. Can you tell me what that is? For your audience, a V-bid, for your audience who has not been in the GWOT for the last 20 years, a V-bid is a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. In layman's terms, a car bomb, what we saw at Trump Tower. So, backing up, he says, I am armed and have a massive V-bid. I've been trying to maintain a very visible profile and have kept my phone, and they are definitely digitally tracking me. Here's where he gets into the other stuff, and this is where we had to redact the names. Well, your producer redacted the names. I have knowledge of this program and also war crimes that were covered up during airstrikes in Nimruz province, Afghanistan in 2019 by the admin, DOD, DEA, and CIA. I conducted targeting for these strikes of over 125 buildings. 65 were struck because of civcas, that's civilian casualties, that killed hundreds of civilians in a single day. U.S. FORA continued strikes after spotting civilians on initial ISR. It was supposed to take 6 minutes and scramble all aircraft in CENTCOM. The UN basically called these war crimes, but the administration made them disappear. I was part of that cover-up with U.S. FORA, an agent, redacted, of the DEA. So I don't know if my abduction attempt is related to either. I worked with, redacted, IO staff on this as well as the response to Bala Murghab. Redacted commander at the time, redacted, can validate this. You need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war because this is a mutually assured destruction situation. Then he says, for vetting, my LinkedIn is Matt Berg or Matthew Livelsberger, an active duty 18 Zulu out of 110, that's 1st Battalion 10th Special Forces Group. My profile is public. I have an active TSSCI with UAP, USAP access.
What is USAP? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is. But I checked his credentials on LinkedIn. So that was the first thing I did. I went to his LinkedIn page. First thing I noticed was all of his bona fides were in place. He has all the UAS training from USASOC and everything else. And so I said, okay, at least the guy knows what he's talking about with drones. That was a very rough dig into the guy. But my issue was I couldn't validate or verify any of this information. And I told him that. And how I responded to him was in a subsequent email. I said, this is obviously a very big deal, but I don't have anything to verify this information with. Talking about gravitic propulsion systems without evidence just makes me another UFO talking head. Like, I'm not going to go on my social media page and start talking about UFOs and anti-gravity systems and everything. I don't know what you're talking about. I can't. And he said, can I get on Fox News Contact on Signal as well as Sean's show? Hegseth would be good too. That was his last message to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, what is a gravitic propulsion system?
To be honest,
Copy.
We're also following breaking news out of Las Vegas, where police and fire officials are now investigating a fire and explosion at Trump Las Vegas. They say it happened in a car that a driver pulled into a valet area there, and the vehicle exploded.
So, did you get the information that I sent you about China's, I want to say, I think it was the 6th generation aircraft and how they kind of actually look like UFO stagecrafts? I know you heard about.
Oh, yeah, I've seen all the videos on that. You know, here's the thing. I wanted to be a fighter pilot in the Marine Corps, but that obviously my eyesight wasn't as best as what they required. So I'm a fan of stuff like that. And when I saw that came out, I was like, oh, cool. You know, there's something so different design, you know. Now, here's the thing, though. It's kind of one of those things. Just because they're showing something that is displayed to the world now as more of like they're using it in a sense to try to have the one up on everybody, because now they just put out a 6th-gen fighter, especially with that kind of design. Yet we've got something called the NGAD, which is a next generation air dominance, I believe is what it's called, or aerial dominance, one of those two. And that is something that has a different design. It's something that I've heard rumored that was tested out at Nevada test site, or what people refer to it as Area 51. That was also something that was tested out of Hellendale's facility over at Lockheed Skunk Works out in the high desert out there. I know a couple people who went there that know it was there. So I think once that comes out, but the difference is, in the United States, when they release something like that, they're not just showing the plane in its entirety. They're going after what's mostly the capabilities of what it can do. That's what they want to project out to the world. Yeah, here's a nice shiny object of a new, aerial vehicle or new drone or new helicopter, but we display what it can do. Obviously, we know the 6th-gen fighter in China flies. We saw it on video. But what does it really do? Where does it really compare itself to something like the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter or something like the F-22 Raptor? Now, if you were to figure out its capabilities, do that, put some simulations into it, and figure out really quickly that I'm willing to bet the F-22 would probably still school that thing, and even probably the F-35. Even if it's slower and less maneuverable, I think it would still probably do some damage to that thing.
Just like I said, I honestly think it's like just a stagecraft myself. Maybe those other, jets will blow them out of the water. I guess it's like amphibious, I believe, at least what I read up on it, the China 6th-generation craft. But just like you said, I have not seen it in actual testing or actual combat. So, I have nothing to compare it to.
Right. You know what it reminds me of? It's almost like when somebody takes like a Pontiac Fiero and they take like the chassis off and then they slap like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini chassis, like one of those kits. I think that's what that might have been. Something that looks a little bit more fancy, but I don't think ultimately it's anything different than what they've already produced. I mean, they have the J-20, which is something that's pretty quick. It's a stealth fighter, 5th generation, but I don't think it's going to do anything different than that. I think just because it looks different and, they want to kind of try to build the mystery into it. But then again, the way that they work, just like our media works, they will only tell you what they want you to hear and what they want you to know. So if they want you to think that they put something out that's devastating to aerial superiority around the world, that's what they're going to say, of course. Just like if you were to have, a high-spec car racing one of my cars, I mean, how do I know mine's faster than yours? Well, yeah, you could tell me the horsepower and specs, but guess what? That doesn't even, drivetrain with horsepower makes all the difference with, obviously with power to weight ratio. So you really don't know until you actually put them face to face and then all of a sudden race it and get the results. It's also up to the operator at that point to see if they know how to use the thing correctly. So, you will always have operator error that will still, even the most sophisticated technologies out there are still going to impact the ability of whether something's properly utilized or not, right?
They were testing AI simulations against actual human pilots, and the AI blew the humans out of the water 100% of the times during aerial combats. Because I believe I don't want to say there's actually a program, because I have no proof that there is going to be a program to where they actually have, I want to say artificially intelligent aircrafts in wars, but I believe that is a possibility of future events.
My personal opinion is I think they already made those. I don't think they're operational. I think they're going to be in the testing phases pretty much for a long time, because the difference is what would AI perceive to be a threat? The difference between us as humans and something like AI. Let's say, for example, you had an artificial intelligence that became a police officer. What's the difference between a little kid playing with an airsoft gun or a water gun in his front yard, but yet this AI specifically said anybody who has a firearm is a threat? The difference between us and machines is we use judgment. Machines can't do that. They have parameters that are set, and that's what they're programmed to do. So it's black and white, it's this or that. the reason why I think AI would win against a human pilot is because there's only so much you could do in an aircraft. Now, the thing with AI is it already has the parameters to predict what the pilot's going to do based off of variables that can think about all of that within a fraction of a second compared to a human. So just because it's already pre-programmed. So that is where the advantage is of as far as AI technologies. But with judgment, intentions, with a bunch of different things, I think the human element will still have to be the most important factor into that with the judgment decisions based off of something like a kid wielding a water gun or something that looks, like a firearm, and AI can't tell the difference because of the programming, what it is, and it decides to kill the child. I mean, that would be horrible. So judgment, I think, is going to be king compared to what AI is able to do.
I think it's also the G-force factor too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you don't have somebody that you have to worry about in that cockpit, and that plane can crank out 9, 10 Gs like it's nothing and make the most sophisticated turns pretty easy, hell, I mean, that would be an advantage. But, that would be some scary stuff to think, okay, what is this AI going to think all of a sudden if it sees, or, it could malfunction. It happens all the time with technology, and I think, they made the Terminator movies for a reason. They made a bunch of different movies with that kind of thing for a reason. So it's kind of, it's unknown, but I think it'd be kind of interesting to see what further AI technologies they've integrated that actually have productive things that they can do to help with us instead of something that would possibly be God, I'm blanking the word right now. A risk, I wasn't going to use that word, but just essentially a risk, a liability. That's what it is,
In 2018, there was, I want to say, a team of engineers at the MIT college that made the first ever plane with no moving parts, and it's propelled by no fossil fuels or propellers. It was a wingless electromagnetic air vehicle, and it was I want to say propelled by plasma. So, how far do you think it will be in the future until the government actually, I want to say, implements this into, I want to say, the regular American public?
Good question. And we've had technologies like that ever since the 50s, right? And that's what a lot of reverse engineered technologies are running off of with 0 point energy, things like that. Obviously, you have a group that doesn't want that technology to come out because it would change the world. It would make the oil, gas, coal energy system basically useless because we have something we no longer have to depend on all that kind of stuff if we have free energy. So I think in the same kind of sense with that is, yeah, there's going to be things that they do with it that are going to be great, but I think they're going to try to impose limitations onto the designs to say, oh yeah, we can't mass produce this for X, Y, and Z reasons. There's a bunch of different things. You look at all these inventors that came out with things like vehicles that can run off of, like a car that can run off of across the country with just a gallon of water out of Florida, and somebody got murdered for that, and all of a sudden the stuff got black shelved. So there's always innovation, and people are always trying to think different. But then you have corruption, you have greed, and you have power and control are the things that are the most valued from these psychopaths who are very high up in these organizations, and they don't want that to come forward. So I think if we were in a perfect world, I think our world would be completely different. I think we'd be completely different as people, more elevated consciously. I think that would be, we'd all be healthier for one. We'd all be spiritually even higher on that with beliefs, which I think is great. I don't think there'd be a lot of the wars and a lot of differences. I don't think racism would necessarily be something that would exist. I don't think anything prejudice would happen because we'd all be smarter. And it just seems like the world tries to keep us dumber, tries to, instead of, okay, let's talk about technologies. well, let's talk about how to benefit the world. But yet, what kind of dress is Kim Kardashian wearing? We're going to talk about that for an hour in the media, or like somebody goes to have ice cream or something, some celebrity. It's like nobody really gives a shit. This doesn't help us with what we're trying to do here as humanity. So I think ultimately, I wish that stuff would already be out, and I didn't believe in any of that kind of stuff prior to my experience, but now all of a sudden here we are. This is just life.
Have you ever heard of a man called, I believe his name is Charles Schwab? Or
Chuck Schwab, yeah. Or
yeah.
Klaus Schwab, you mean?
Yeah, Carl. Yeah, that dude.
Guy with the World Economic Forum that everybody accuses me of being a part because I have a SDG Global Initiative pin from the United Nations that I wear in my suits. Yeah, everybody accuses me.
I never knew that.
Yeah, some of the interviews I've done, even in the Battle Disclosure, and when I've done some conferences, I've worn that pin just because of some of the organizations I'm a part of. Here's what I think of that guy, and I think about the World Economic Forum. Stay out of people's lives. It's not for you to decide what people can do and what they can have. That is for God. That is for anybody on that level, which is only one level, which is the divine. That's up for that. That's the reason why we were created that way. Free will is another thing that they don't like. So, of course, you got people who have all this money, who want all this influence and want to have all this control and power, and they don't care what anybody thinks, and they just want to try to bribe and pay all these politicians to get their stuff into law, essentially, which is illegal, and pretty much put bureaucracy into the lives of every single person to say you can't do this, you can only do this on our terms and this and that. I think it's completely wrong. So I think those people in the World Economic Forum that are like that, I think they're a bunch of psychopaths, and I think that guy's probably one of the worst ones of them. And the thing is I love the pushback that everybody was giving them because they wanted to implement some things and try to force their way in, so to speak, into our Constitution and into our bylaws, which didn't happen. And I don't think it will, especially with the oncoming administration coming forward, that's about to take place here in about a week or so. So, yeah, sorry, guys, I'm not a part of that group. I never would be, even if, they were trying to offer me a lot of money. It just would not happen. There's just a lot that I don't agree with, and the way that they lie to everybody. You can tell when they're lying. You can tell when they're trying to be the silver-tongued snakes. I think very low of them.
So how do you feel about their global leaders program? Or have you ever heard of this where I want to say there was a dude who just got dumped from the Canadian government named Justin Trudeau.
Yep.
He just got, I want to say, exiled from Parliament, or he maybe stepped down. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, he stepped down. He resigned because obviously the policies and things that he'd done only enriched himself and his friends and family. It's one of those things, rules for thee and not for me. It's no different than any of the bureaucrats that live in this country that are politicians. It's no different. The only difference is Trudeau is in a higher position. So I think for global leaders program, there's already something like that. So why do they have to have something implemented that integrates into the World Economic Forum? It's because the UN's failing, because the policies that they're trying to do. It's like, no, you guys aren't in charge of any countries. You guys are supposed to help be the diplomats to try to get everybody on the same page to an extent, just in case something happens, at least a way to unite us as people of this planet, because we're all pretty much the same. Subtle differences, but ultimately we're people. We have families, we have fathers, we have mothers, we all have that. So ultimately, I think any kind of external control, I think, is not a pleasant thing by any means, and I just think it's ridiculous.
I want to say there was a man on the Sean Ryan show recently. He was an older dude, and he, I guess, was one of the dude who would recruit people for the what's the name of it? Not the mind control experiments. Gateway. There we go. He was an older dude who would recruit people for the Gateway experiments. and he divulged that there were 4 known alien bases, but he said his knowledge was 50 years old. So how do you feel about the government actually knowing about hitting actual alien bases on Earth?
Well, here's the thing. If there were really alien bases on Earth, I think they would be well known at this point because this is the topic of these days. And I think there's a lot of people who have drones. There's a lot of people who are researchers. There's a lot of people always investigating stuff. Meaning with anything like even Area 51, there's so many people going out there. There's so many people going to suspected locations of where they have this stuff. And, yes, there's technologies at these facilities, of course, that they're trying to keep quiet, which is obvious. But I think there was any alien bases on there, first and foremost, we wouldn't be having to shoot down their stuff.
My whole thing is I'm not really, sold on the whole Area 51 thing. It's actually a known, like military base. So, anything that comes out of there is obviously military, Well, I don't know, but I just got a different mind frame of thought. But
you're correct on your mindset about it because it's not what it's all hyped up to be anymore. There was one place in time where it was, and obviously it became well too known. So obviously they moved it to other locations. Stuff that's off the books that's not can be supplied with a FOIA request, for example. Everything's privatized. So again, a CIA runs that base to an extent, but it's also something a part of the Air Force. So they still have the ways that they can do FOIA, especially with government intervening or any kind of people like a 4-star general, Secretary of Defense, anything like that, or yet any kind of senators and congressmen they could easily figure out. But at the same time, that's why they choose to keep it private and they put it out of the reach of FOIA requests and put compartmentalization off of it so nobody can look into it. So I think you're spot on about that. I think they understood that probably people were getting a little too close and they said, you know what, let's move it to this program and move it to this location and nobody would know. Everybody would still be too fixated on Area 51 because that's the talk. But yet nobody's looking over here. I think it's a perfect plan.
As far as, I want to say, making contact with actual ETs, I was actually kind of shocked when I actually first seen some of Dr. Greer's older things where he actually talked about, I want to say there was some kind of technology that he's seen where I want to say they actually made something like go into another dimension or disappear in real time. And I'm kind of wondering why do you think he's kind of watered down this message? At least I feel he has.
I mean, it also depends on perception. I think that right now he's a really smart guy. And he can explain things that basically will go over your head so fast, and you won't really grasp what the message is. So I think that he has trouble trying to dissect it so a regular person can understand what he's saying. Because even when I've showed certain videos he's talked about to family, to friends, relatives, things like that, it goes way over their head. But then when you try to simplify it and try to put it in that kind of context, then all of a sudden they understand it. So I think that that's kind of like when he speaks about stuff like that, it is like having somebody talk to you in a foreign language. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that he gets criticized on is the CE5 and contact approaches. And, the crazy thing is that's skeptical to me. And it was before when I went to Sedona with him and Demi Lovato, her mom, and her fiance Jordan out in Sedona in Arizona last year before the Temecula event, it was something that we saw a lot of stuff. And it was a lot of things that were not being picked up on our flight radar app that I usually use because I'm like, okay, let's see if that's a plane. Let's see if it's a helicopter or drone because it'll tell you if it is too. And let's use a satellite chart. None of that was coming. Let's use a star chart and planets and things like that. And there wasn't any of that either. And plus the stuff that some of the anomalies did were obviously not natural or something that, even Joshua Tree when we were out there before we went to Temecula. We saw one of them that appeared, and it looked like a shooting star. So it was coming down like this, and then it just went straight up and disappeared. And then we saw like a golden disc that would basically appear for a few seconds, and it would just disappear. And then we'd see like orbs that would appear close to us and then disappear. So I think I get where people lose their, how do I put it? They kind of lose their wits about them to say that, oh, well, this sounds a little too crazy, and they're not wrong. But at the same time, it's real. I've seen it firsthand with this, and I was like, this is insane. But it took my perception, and it took me to go there personally to see that and to realize that, yes, it's true. I saw it with my own eyes. I did it, and I thought it was pretty cool, And I'm glad that there's just a lot of things that you can do to try to debunk it if you see something that is, that you think it might be like a plane coming in at a distance that just looks like something just floating there, but really what it is just a plane getting closer to you until it gets overhead and flies off. So as far as interdimensional stuff, I have no clue. I just know what I've experienced, and that's all I can attest to any of that. Compared to what other people speculate or talk about, but I think it's interesting.
How do you feel about the foreign spending in the U.S. that we have given billions to other countries for their wars?
Well, I don't like it. You see what happened in California recently. You saw what happened in North Carolina. You saw what happens with anything that requires aid, and all of a sudden we don't have money. And then you have the government, oh yeah, here's $750, go ahead. But yet this family just lost everything. But yet here we are giving money to Ukraine, for example. You know what the whole point of that was for? All of a sudden you have Zelensky and all his people buying fucking yachts. You guys are supposed to be helping your own people, but they don't do that. They're taking money. And then we found out too, they're getting the politicians who sign that bill and helping them get money are getting kickbacks. They're getting millions of dollars for it. So Zelensky and his people will take the money, but then they'll kick back money to all these other people. Yeah, thanks for helping us get all this money. Here you go. We'll give you some more money. So it's like you give us money, but we'll give you money too. So of course, what greedy politician going to say no to that? That's what it really was for. It's just money laundering. And everybody knows this. And the media is like, oh, well, we're just trying to help people. And then they're trying to spin it as Russia's being devastated by Ukraine. That doesn't happen. First of all, Russia's got a hell of a lot bigger military, and they got a lot of people that train a lot more efficiently than Ukrainian military people. And it got to the point to where they're trying to pull women and children to go fight. I'm sorry, but the losing side is the only one who does that because they're trying to build up reserves or try to take kids that are a lot younger to try to get them to put on the front line. So no, I don't think any of the money that was going there was beneficial. I think we need to take care of ourselves here. We need to take care of homeless Americans that are here. We need to put more into the education system that actually helps instead of the Department of Education through the government. I'm talking about a state level. And then we also need to do something about our health care to everybody, not Obamacare. And we need to do money that's more self-sustaining for our country to go to the states to make better roads, better quality stuff. And I think I'm hoping the new administration does something like that. But again, we don't know. They're not in position right now. So, but I think we solely need to take care of ourselves personally as a country and make America first. I have no problem with anybody coming here. I mean, a couple generations before me, my family were all immigrants. They came here for a better life, so I encourage it. Do it legally, though. And if you come here, and I think anybody also, I think people need to also sacrifice a little bit of time and kind of devote themselves to make this place better, do something better, lead by example, be nicer to people. I think helping people goes a long way, and I think we need to help our own people first because I don't think, first of all, you're trying to get politicians to try to help people, and that's ridiculous because they don't care. And I even saw the video with Gavin Newsom with some lady going asking her, what are you going to do for us? We just lost everything. And she's like, oh, I'm on the phone trying to call the president. It tells me that you have no plan, you have no desire to help anybody, because all you give a shit about is yourself. And your friends trying to make all this money and have all this power that you think you do. Sorry, we as American citizens outnumber every politician, and we have a lot more weapons. And it doesn't matter if there's a police force or a military, we are much bigger than that. And these people forget about it, you know? And if it ever gets to a point where it tips the scales because something bad like that happens, I feel bad for the opposing side, because you just woke up the largest military in the world. 300 plus million people who are armed could be a scary consequence to face. So they forget that the founding fathers and things like that were implementing something where us as people elect the people we depend on to help get the system in order, and that's not what's going on. And I hope that changes, but then again, everybody tells us one thing, but they don't really do much about it. So we'll see.
Yeah, that was one of the things. Honestly, I'm truly happy that the new current administration is coming. But on that other note, I have, been living in America my whole life. Honestly, the fact that they're putting essentially celebrities in front of people's faces, it's just like you said earlier. People are more concerned about Kim Kardashian's ass than actually getting something done. And then me as an American citizen, I, have the mental capacity to realize that there's figureheads, there's puppets, and then there's kickbacks. Just like you said, the money can always go to something, and then they claim it'll land there, but then essentially they're loading their own pockets. Just like you said, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is related to Nancy Pelosi. Yes. And I don't want to say Nancy Pelosi is laundering money, but there has been a lot of things said about Nancy Pelosi and how she got her money and all these millions. At least those are the rumors.
Well, you know what? They're not rumors. You want to know why? Because if you go into an elected official position, you're only making $129,000 a year as an elected official, which, I mean, that's good money. That's something that can make you sustainable and live comfortable. If you're frugal with your money, you're not blowing it on everything shiny that you see. But of course, she's got a larger net worth. That's the biggest red flag. Look at the people who've went into office and came out super rich. How did that happen? Let's see. It's called money laundering. It's called corruption. As opposed to somebody like Trump, who his first term, he lost money going into office. He lost several billion of his net worth because of that responsibility. And I think it's going to happen more for him too. But that's the difference. You look who gains and you look who's losing. And, Trump said what he was going to do, which I give him a big, a high five for that. Because every politician I've seen, including Newsom, including Jared Polis here in Colorado, with those whole Venezuelan gang members that are, taking over apartment complexes and things like that, and trying to get them to hopefully usher them in to vote for whoever they want, so that way they can keep their balance and control, which doesn't work that way because we have the Constitution written as it exists. But they try to cheat the system. And if they're trying to cheat the system, they're trying to cheat every single American citizen every single American citizen who has also fought for our freedoms as a military member and has died for that. It's a slap to all of their faces too. And these people try to cheat the system because of money, corruption, and power. It's so sickening. So I really hope that shit gets reeled in, and I hope we start doing what really matters as American citizens, because that's what's going to make us. And if it doesn't, it's going to certainly break us. And we're not going to be the America that we want to be, and we're not going to be the America that we strive to try to educate and leave for younger generations coming up in the pipeline,
And that is one thing. The future is like one of the things I'm actually more concerned about, because the fact that there's, just like you said earlier, there's so many homeless people, there's so many vets on the street, people need, medicine, I'm not really in favor of big pharmaceutical companies myself, but at the end of the day, there are people that need these to, essentially help them.
Yes, they do. And the number of that is a lot slimmer than the people who actually need it. Because I just think people are trying to push out money, i.e. prescriptions, because that's how they get paid. And they don't care. They get into these positions because it makes money. They sell themselves as somebody trying to serve, but they're doing it very selfishly. They're not doing it for the benefit of other people. They're doing it to enrich themselves, whatever that might be. And that's the real problem. You know, the thing I like about your interviews is you're not like asking about the things that everybody's already asked me about my experience and all that kind of stuff. Like you're more outside the box, and you're engaging current events and things like that, which I think is good because a lot of interviews don't do that. So I think you get to learn about a lot of people when you actually see what their personal views are, and I really applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And as far as answering questions, man, you do the best job, I swear. Like,
try to, man. I try to make it to where people understand that, this is what I think, but again, I could be wrong. I don't want people to think that, I know everything, because I don't know everything. I only know what I've experienced and what I can attest to, and that's it. And if anybody has questions about that, yeah, I'll tell you what I think, but don't take it, as gospel, because I don't think anybody should take anybody's words as gospel. There's only one thing you can. That's the Lord, right? That's God. That's the Almighty.
and that is one thing I definitely believe in. I definitely believe in God, for sure.
Me too. I'm trying to leave this planet better than when I came into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I can be known for that, by all means, it's something I would enjoy. And I think a lot of people have to understand that the concept of leave it, if you leave it, then leave it better than where you found it. So what are people doing to benefit other people? What are people trying to do to help other people? I mean, the only way that we become better as a society is everybody steps up and does it, So you getting the information out there, I mean, that's also helpful too. It gets people to open their minds and understand that there's more to what they can experience or what they understand. They're just not putting themselves in the situations to do so. It's just, what way are you going to do it? What way are you going to try to learn? Because in order to learn well is you have to teach. And that's what I try to do, is teach people, because it teaches me as well. So, just leave things better than where you found them. And, the people that contribute to this world to try to make a difference in people's lives in a positive way, keep doing it. The ones that are doing a negative sense, we don't need you here. This world's already full of problems as it is, and they're just adding to it. We just need to be better. And as people all around, we need to be better.
Man, I couldn't have said it better myself.
There you go.
How long have you and your wife been together?
5 years.
That's cool, man.
5 years. She's been a good support system, and the thing is, I was joking with one of my buddies. He's also a whistleblower. I'm not going to say his name, but he's well known. We were having coffee one time, and I was like, man, if our wife, like if we were single and we're well known in the world in this, with the news, media, this kind of stuff, imagine trying to meet women now.
Oh, it's horrible.
So you're the UFO guy, you're crazy, stuff like that. But it's like, women, women these days can't put down their cell phones. They are so materialistic in certain ways. Men are too, but also the dynamic changes, because you have men who claim they're men trying to grow up and trying to think that they're men, but they're not doing things that real men would do. So then women have to overcompensate with that, try to become the masculine role to set the direction of a relationship, and then try to tell the guy how he has to act. And then because they can't depend on the man, then all of a sudden they start trying to overdevelop themselves in a masculine role. And that turns a man off, a real man, because look, I'm here to look for a woman. I'm not here to look for a man. I don't need somebody benching more than I can fucking do, But at the same time, I get why they do it. But at the same time, men need to be fucking men and need to pull up their fucking pants, work fucking hard, grind out, do what you possibly can to provide. That's what men were for. Look at our prehistoric, or I shouldn't say prehistoric man, but God, you have a woman who was taking care of the kids in a cave or in some sort of hut or something that they made back then, trying to keep them out of the elements. And then you had the hunter, the man, trying to go trek food for 20 plus miles every single day, trying to bring food back for the family, trying to defend it from other, competing tribes or competing, people, and that was the thing, is it was a very hard life. And yet we stem from that, because what do hard times do? They create better men. Better, harder men create easy times. Easy times create soft men. And soft men create hard times. And then the hard times again create hard people. And that process repeats itself. So yeah, there's always some good that comes out of it. But unfortunately, there's a lot of growing pains. And I think that when we start shifting as a society, hopefully starting soon, that it will make a big difference on how people carry themselves. Where men can be men and women can be women. Women can be the nurturing type that they're meant to be, and men can be the type that can be the providers and to nurture and protect and care for the family and to bring the resources and the food there. There's a difference between being wealthy as somebody's being poor. It's a mindset and it's a lifestyle choices that they make that impact that. But so instead of bringing elk home and bringing it back to the cave, as a sense of financial security, right? Now we have money, which is what serves as that. So the dynamic doesn't change, but the materials do. And because they do, that's how the dynamic shifted. And that's why they have this whole thing of women trying to be masculine and trying to do because men can't do it, which sucks. They even talk about, the pressure when somebody grips, like a handshake, right? A grip of a man, it's almost like 98 pounds and women are like 112 pounds of grip strength. Wow. Men also don't have as much testosterone. Fortunately for me, I haven't been natural ever since I competed. And even when I, a lot, over 13 years, I've been on it. Got no problems with it. I have to take it for the rest of my life, but I don't care. But it's even men that have fewer testosterone, so they don't exhibit the hormone levels that are supposed to secrete. So that way you can be a man and this helps you. That's what testosterone helps with. But if you have that going lower, which is causing health defects, but then you have a combination of ill-minded people who are trying to indoctrinate children to think that they can be a woman could be a man and a man can be a woman.
I was just gonna go there. The evil scientist. And that is one thing I honestly learned was true a long time ago. The fact that there are some scientists so evil that they will go to Joseph Mengele level things and experiments on human bodies.
Yes, they will. And guess what? It's been like that ever since humanity has existed. There's been experiments they've ran. Fortunately, we would hope throughout history, because we have access to books that talk about this, that humanity would not make the same mistake. But yet here we are. A couple years ago, it happened again, where they were doing experimentation on a bunch of things, right? And now it's doing the same thing again with trying to convince people that they can be things that they're genetically supposed to, that they can't be. This is the thing why bodybuilding is hard for a lot of people when you're competing, because here's the thing, you have to have a certain genetic ability in order to maintain muscle mass, to be lean enough to where you can't have body fat enough, like 3 to 5%. But there's people's body types and genetics out there that won't allow them to do that. So what's the rule? The rule is, somebody can try and get as best as they possibly could, which I can commend them for that. But the rule is, and the reality is, if you don't have the genetics, then it ain't going to happen. It's the same thing. You and I are not meant to be women. You and I are meant to be men. That's what we were born as. That's what we're going to be. And we're going to assume those roles and responsibilities that a man should be. And that's what we're going to care for our misses, care for our wives, care for our girlfriends, whatever it might be. And if we have kids, we protect our kids. We teach them as grown men how to walk the right path of life, set them up for success, give them lives that are better than what we had. And that's what's supposed to happen. And then the kids are supposed to inherit your knowledge and your materials when you pass on, and they're supposed to carry the torch and continue that evolution upstream for pretty much until humans cease to exist. Whether it's by our own hands, which would be stupid, or it's by nature itself, something completely out of our control, which is natural. But again, we've got evil scientists out there, quote unquote, that try to look at us as experimentation. The experimentation, everybody's got the experiment mentality. Hey, what if I eat this food? What does it make me feel? hey, what if I do this at the gym? What if I do this? What if I say this if I'm trying to pick up a woman? What if I'm trying to do this during a job interview? Everything's kind of an experiment. But what's up here is going to matter. What's in here especially going to matter with intention and what you're able to, what you want to provide and what you're able to articulate to other people in a positive sense. That's just at least what I believe.
You just dropped the knowledge bomb. Gave me a lot to think about. I will say that.
Well, there you go, man. Think, that's what I'm here for. So if you learn from it and you utilize that kind of stuff and see where it takes you, it could be better. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, quote unquote, but ultimately it starts with the same thing as with intention, and it goes with perseverance, and it goes with, some people are afraid to start somewhere because everybody is scared of the unknown. Oh, I'm scared to do this because I don't want to, I'm comfortable where I'm at. So I don't want to leave the comfortable pillow I've got to go and try to see something if it's going to work better. That's particularly the problem with humanity, is the comfort zones that they create. Comfort zones are going to kill you. People have to think of themselves like a thermometer, right? So let's say that you're at this part where you're trying to bump this temperature up and you're killing it in life and doing so great and everything, you start making all this fucking money, and then you start getting comfortable, and then what happens? It starts to go down. Well, shit, I'm losing everything. All of a sudden, start getting overweight and life's not being the same. Oh shit, okay, start doing it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. And it's just a ever cycle of like a yo-yo, right? As opposed to just being consistent. And I've had people that, have spoken about against me publicly, which is great on them. I don't care. But the thing is if they understood where I'm at in life nowadays, when they understood what I've created and what I've been able to do, I failed more times, so many more times than they've ever started. And that's all it takes, because guess what? You think of success as like a bunch of ladders, right? Like you have a bunch of them in a row, and you're trying to get to the next stage. Okay, well, this ladder, this one's weak, whatever it is. Okay. So yeah, what happens is, you stop at that step. Well, guess what? There's other steps you can go on. Okay, so I'm going to try this way. It gets me up a little bit higher. Okay, cool. Then what happens? You get stuck at this point. So let's try another way. So the problem is the people who are desperate enough, who are tired of where they're at, who are tired of the results that they're getting, who want something better, they're going to keep testing what step's going to propel them up to the next level. The people who are comfortable are not going to do that. They're going to come up with excuses on why they can't take that step. They're going to come up with excuses on why it's going to be hard to do that, instead of realizing that they themselves are the problem and not the situation.
I believe it's the victim mentality that they are actually trying to teach people.
No, you're right about that, and it's very evident, because you can look around everywhere and see it. They want people. It feels like they want a society of consumers and employees instead of entrepreneurs and people to create things, right? Because guess what? You start to enrich yourself. You enrich other people. You hire people. You train them up. You make them into people who make a lot of money. And then they repeat the process again and again and again as they expand a company. But the problem is they want people to just have the 9-to-5 mentality that, oh, well, I only think about innovation when I'm at work, when I'm supposed to be paid to do that. Well, I'm sorry to say this, but that's not going to pay a lot of money. Doing it for yourself, or integrating into a company, or doing something where you know how to take $1, turn it into $4 through innovation, through things that are useful to people, i.e. need items, and things that are also going to help benefit people in the long run, i.e. other companies maybe, or infrastructures, which is what I do. That's where you basically can level up and help those, which in turn helps yourself. But everybody else has the mentality of consuming and taking and taking and taking, but not giving back. That's where we sit as a problem. So when you look at it, what does that create? It creates greed. Then because it creates greed, they get a little bit of money, and what do? Squander it away, because they literally buy things that they normally have never had before. And then They also have shiny object syndrome, which is the biggest problem that a lot of people coming into money or coming into business have a big problem with. Instead of buying assets, they buy liabilities, something that they cannot transform into an asset, into money. Because here's the thing, money in an account doesn't do anything. You have $1 million in your account, and it's not doing anything. If you take that million dollars out, invest in the things that are going to turn that million into 3 million, 4 million, buy appreciating assets, sell them off, repeat the process, and keep taking a little bit of money out for yourself, but keep a majority of that money back in and repeat that process is the easiest thing you can do. But most people are worried of even taking the risk to do that. So, yeah, wealth is very challenging for people to understand. Managing assets is very hard for people to understand because they themselves maybe have not experienced having that kind of luxury, but then all of a sudden they go to a different avenue to keep themselves at the level of what they're used to, i.e. being comfortable. Some people are very comfortable being poor. That's why you hear people squandering away the family money, inheritance, stuff like that, because they're uncomfortable with having all that money. So they spend it all, get themselves back to being comfortable, because for some reason, a lot of money will give people anxiety. So ultimately, I wish that would change. I wish people would understand that money is a tool. Money's not just going to sit there. And if you can make more of it, invest it, make more of it, multiply that, and keep doing that process. Investing is where it's at, and buying appreciating assets and specifically need items is where it's at.
And believe it or not, since I don't have kids, that's one of the things I actually tried to install into my little cousin.
There you go.
I actually tried to tell him, like, it's two kind of people in the world. Do you want to be, the boss, or do you want to be a worker?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Everybody says they wouldn't be a boss until they actually have to go do the shit that a boss goes and does.
You're just getting like you said, they're not willing to take a risk. They're not willing to put their money on the line. But at the end of the day, when you actually make that profit, it's all hard work and dedication.
Yes, it is. It didn't happen overnight. Rome was not built in a day. Everybody gets so impatient. So sometimes you get lucky. But, ultimately where it's at is consistency. Just being consistent is what makes the best progress. And everybody talks about balance too. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're somebody trying to make something of yourself in a business sense with money in a company or multiple companies, that's going to become your life for a while, for a long time. And when you shy away from that, and this has happened to me even with disclosure, when I would go more towards that and trying to do things with disclosure, then my business would start going sideways. So then I'd have to go, okay, push disclosure off to the side so I can go back to business and start making things better. And it just happens. It's natural. But it's like a child, right? You have to continually to keep giving attention, keep nurturing it, and keep getting it to thrive and grow. It's no different. The only difference is it's not living. But what is important with that is the compound around it is living, i.e. employees. So when you have, like myself, for example, I've got like 130 employees. Those are my responsibility. If I don't perform and do what I need to do, then they're going to suffer. But it's not even just them, it's their families. So you times that times 400, 500 people, depending on the size of these families. That's where it becomes a big, where it affects. The other problem is the customer base. So it's not even just the employees, it's also the customers, people who receive the products. Well, if they're getting something that's subpar, something that was not put a lot of money into or investing to try to bring up better so that way they can have something sustainable, they also affect their businesses. And some of these businesses have thousands of people. One thing like this can affect a lot of different groups of people. And that's the reality of it. So, if you have the ability to think of that, but you incorporate it in a positive way, you incorporate it in a way that's going to help you thrive by giving them something that benefits and they give you money in return, that's how you build wealth.
Man, honestly, I ain't even gonna lie. I'm blessed just for the fact that, I'm alive. Like, honestly, I had a conversation. Well, this is probably off topic, but I had a conversation with one of my other cousins. He's like older than me. And, you know, he was just like, oh, if I just had this money, it'd be all right. This and that. And I was like, see, that's the difference between you and me, because I told him just the fact that I wake up in the morning, I feel like that's a blessing. The fact that I can still walk, I got mobility in my arms, my legs, everything. Just the fact that, you know, I could literally get up and walk out the house. I told him that's a blessing.
Yep. You got to wake up this morning. That's already the biggest blessing. So when my feet hit the ground, I am super thankful. You know why? Money is the easiest fucking thing to get in this world. It really, really is. But health is not. Health is something that is you. You have this as what you take home at the end of the day besides your word to others, right? So your body is something that is what you have to bring with everywhere you go. Money, not really the case. You could lose it. You can make it. You can do any of that. Opportunities are the same way, and people are the same way. All you have is yourself. And the problem with a lot of people is they have the mentality of I'll be happy when. Oh, so you'll be happy if this works out for you? What if it never works out for you? So you're going to be miserable? No. Don't be miserable. Be miserable to the point to where you take action. That's the whole point of taking action, is because you're tired of where you're going. You're tired of the results that you may not be getting. So what do? Change your results. Change the thought patterns. Change your beliefs. That's what starts the bigger picture of things. Then the habits of thoughts become habits of action. So when you start to have habits of thought create actions, actions are then, with plans, are going to result in, or I should say results, right? That's how that works. It starts from here, and this is what makes you money. This is what makes you opportunities. I don't even want to say money, but I just say opportunities. And that's where a lot of people fail, because sometimes it might be challenging. Sometimes it might be, oh, well, you know, it'll happen one day. Okay, just by sitting there and not doing anything about it? Or is it something where you're going to have to actually hug your nuts and say, let's fucking go? You know, so it's one of those things that everybody who says, I'll be happy when, well, you're going to be sitting for a long time trying to figure out what makes you happy. Because the fact that I woke up this morning, super happy about that. Didn't get into a car accident today. Super happy about that. I was super happy I was able to go work out today. Super happy I'm feeling better from being sick from over the last weekend, and it carried on to this week. Super happy about that. Super happy I got clean clothes. Super happy that I had a good dinner. You know, super happy I came home to my wife and she's feeling better. You know, that is what makes me happy. Materialism, yeah, people get it. They appreciate it while they get it. There's always something better out there. And people always, I got to have the new iPhone, or I've got to have the new car, or I've got to have this, I've got to have that. That shit doesn't matter. It only matters to the people, i.e. the businesses, and I don't blame them one bit, because I do the same thing. We try and innovate and create things for people that way they can use and benefit from. But at the same time, it's just people put too much power into something like this, materialism. This isn't where it starts, and it's not where it ends. It always starts and ends here. And here.
You know, it's the actual like craziest thing you actually said, at least that I thought of, when you said that people have shiny object syndrome.
Yep.
You know what's even more amazing than that? I used to say something a little bit more crazier than that. I once told one of my friends, he was like an atheist or whatever. I told him, I was like, do you know how to trap a monkey? Because I was like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I actually know like people from Africa and stuff. I was like, do you literally know how they trap monkeys? He said, no. I told him they just get a shiny object and put it in a cage, and then the monkey is attracted to the shiny light and goes and tries to grab them, and they catch the monkey. And I told him it's like literally just a trap. Like literally, like all of this materialism, you know what I mean? It's just a trap. Yep. It's something that holds you down.
Yes, it is.
I told somebody straight up like this, I can't take it all when I die. So I'm like, what does it really matter in the end? You know what I mean?
It doesn't. What really matters is how you make people feel at the end of the day. If you're doing something positive, that's what matters. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. If you're a role model for your children, if you've got children, if you're a good spouse to whoever you're with, you know, things like that. That's what really matters. If you're good to your family, if you're doing better for the family, if you're being that person who is helping, trying to carry the family name on in a better sense, that's what really matters. That's what you can take to the grave. You can't take the new car you just got. You can't take this is the thing. Somebody will own the cars that I have eventually when I leave this earth. Somebody's going to have all the dozen Rolexes I've got. They're going to be wearing those. So they ain't going to be me anymore. Somebody's going to wear, somebody's going to have the house that we live in. It's just how it is. We can't take any of that stuff. That goes back into the market. Somebody else enjoys that, and it just repeats that process. Materialism, I think, just makes life enjoyable to an extent, but people get too carried away. They get very carried away with it. So when you get to a point to where materialism is easy, that really doesn't make you happy anymore. Then you start to go after experiences or memories and things like that, or trying to do things that you normally haven't done. So when people are like, okay, well, you could retire, you could do this, you could go travel all these places, you don't have to go to the office, you don't have to work. It's like, no, because here's the problem. I'm only 35. I'll be 36 next year. So,
oh wow, you're only like 2 years older than me, man.
So if I was to experience everything right now in these next 5 years, for example, travel wherever I want to travel, eat whatever I want to eat, have all the experiences that I have, what the hell am I going to do when I'm 70, 80, 60, 70, 80 years old, when I can't work as much, or things like that, which that ain't going to happen to me. I'm going to be active, and I'm going to be still going to the gym. I'm going to be like RFK. But the thing is you have to create something to look forward to an extent, and you have to give yourself a purpose in that sense. So if it ends up going to the point where you sell the company, end up getting money for it, then I'm probably just going to do the point to where I just teach people how to make companies and try to help them become profitable by putting systems in place and getting them to think on how to discover what type of systems work. Because that's really what it is. You figure out systems can also make you money based off of how people utilize the systems. This is the reason why McDonald's is very successful, besides being probably one of the biggest real estate companies in the world. They have systems. They can take anybody off the street and turn them into employees that can self-sustain every single location. And then they have the franchising options as well, which do the same thing realistically, right? But it's somebody else that's benefiting besides a corporation entirely, right? So I had the same thought, and that's why I started doing different systems for my businesses, and was like the same way. So if I do this and this and this, okay, this is starting to get results, and this is how you go, taking revenue from 12.5 million to 33.5 million in 2 years. So systems implementation is where it's at. Automation is where it gets harder. So having it do it for yourself while you're away is what the tricky part is. Because then you put people in positions that you think you can do, that can take over and do things that are, essentially the same thing as you doing it, but it's never really the case. So the secret to combating that is hiring people smarter than you. But a lot of people have ego, and they don't want people smarter than them, right? That's the difference. Here's an example. I have a 2 master's degrees, and I have a PhD. And they work for me Monday through Friday. I didn't have to go to school for any of that shit. I got people who went to school, better themselves with knowledge, and now they work for me. It's no different, because I'm paying them to employ what their knowledge base is to help the company thrive. Right?
Yeah, man. That's that wisdom.
Honestly.
Yep. 2 years make a difference, I promise you.
They do. Yes, they do. Big difference, man.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What made you go into this business?
Well, I was tired of getting into so I was in the supplement industry. That was one of the things I did, as well as gyms. And the problem is it only pertains to a certain group of people, right? Because not everybody uses gyms. Not everybody uses supplements, right? It's not necessarily a need item. So the cool thing was getting partnered up with one of my business partner, right? Essentially, we're into need items. We're into heavy equipment. So businesses can't run without heavy equipment, like forklifts or things like that, right? Until humans can pick up 5,000 pounds by themselves and put it 12 feet in the air, they're going to need one of my machines. All right. So that's where it's different. So that's why we supply infrastructure. It's also recession proof, right? Because a good economy, bad economy, everybody still needs a forklift. Everybody still needs something on that level of heavy equipment. That's the difference. So having the mindset shift to that direction was great, because then guess what? When COVID happened, every other business shut down. We didn't shut down. We were full steam ahead. Granted, I temporarily fired every employee and had them go home to work from home as a W-2 or W 1099 employee, and they got bigger commissions because they weren't getting paid hourly, but we still made it worthwhile. And then the thoughts that we had is, okay, we have capital, so what are we going to do? Well, guess what? We're going to invest in assets. Because if everybody else is shutting down, we buy up all the other equipment out there. Whoever has the most equipment is king. And that's exactly what we did. So while everybody was complaining on COVID shutting down businesses, well, first of all, you shouldn't have shut down. I'm sorry, but if you want to be genetically experimented with a vaccine that I wouldn't trust necessarily, or can't say that word anymore, thanks to YouTube, but everybody wanted to take that. Well, I wanted to travel. Well, wait till afterwards. You don't have to go to fucking Mexico right now. Wait. Well, this job's implemented. So go find another fucking job. Go find another place to go. People, again, with the comfortability, they'll take whatever they want as long as they're comfortable, right? So I didn't impose anything like that on my employees. I didn't tell them they had to go do this. I didn't tell them they had to go do that. But all we did was buy up equipment. And because of that, we had more than everybody else. And so everybody was sitting there blaming themselves because they shouldn't have shut down or done this or that. We made the most money we've ever made because of COVID.
Me too. That was when I made my first $300,000. I can't even lie. Literally, I had lost half of it though. I took out like 150 and then tried to invest like another 150. I've been investing for 4 years now. Well, this is going on the 5th year. But
there you go.
Yeah, I made the most money ever when when COVID happened.
Yep, me too. That's where we had the jump of, so it was right around before COVID is when we hit 33.5 million and roughly that's when we started at that point. So, and it's just been the same ever since. We've slowly been going up, so since then we've had large corporations that use us exclusively to build them things, which has been very profitable. So hoping to keep that trend up, because that's what's really going to set us apart from everybody else. General Motors needed a specific forklift, and no other forklift company was making them, so we made them. We had a manufacturer for us, and we made them for General Motors, and they bought a lot of them, and we helped General Motors with their EV programs. It's the same thing with Honda and Toyota. We did the same thing. Well, Toyota used their own forklifts, but Honda, we had the same thing. They needed these certain specs and a certain weight, and we manufactured and did whatever we needed to. And we made it happen. That's the difference, So yeah, it takes capital, but at the same time, you got other companies that see what you're able to give them vision-wise and how their life is affected by whatever tool you're providing for them, then that's essentially what's going to help them. So that's what we're able to do with these bigger companies. So because that happened, other companies started taking wind, and they started putting their trust in us. And all of a sudden we got orders that are giving us, $2.8 to $5 million a piece, which half of that's profit.
You know what I think sets us apart from other people?
What's that?
I think it might be you're probably just fearless. I think that's what it might be, truly. Because just like you brought up COVID or whatever, most people were scared. They were in fear. The fact that they've had this figurehead from the government telling them, oh, you're going to die if you don't do this. Oh, you're going to die if, this, that, and the other. Like, they really tried to play the role of a god. And then the fact that, me as a person, I know they're not. It's like, you just got to overcome that fear mentality.
Yes, you do. Everybody's scared of something, and that's the problem. I used to be scared when I was younger. I hated heights, but I changed my mindset about that. You know, I changed my mindset about a lot of things. You know, so when you're able to, what is it? Somebody said that fear was an acronym for something. I can't remember what it was. It was brilliant, though. I'll have to look it up again. But one of my buddies told me about what fear really stands for, and it was just a brilliant way he said it. But that's the problem. You know, these politicians, these figureheads, these people, they're not God. How are they going to tell us what's going to happen? And they don't even fucking know. It doesn't make any sense. So the fact that people put so much power into that and belief into these false things, well, I'm sorry, but if you ruined your life because you believed it, then I mean, do I necessarily feel bad for you when you could have done the research, when you could have done a common sense that you could have done the justice yourself to realize what was going on? Do I necessarily feel bad for you? Not entirely. Well, I bet you won't do that again, you know. But it's like these other, you know, business owners I know that lost their businesses because they shut down. I was like, what the hell do you think was going to happen? All of a sudden, they're just going to allow you put on pause. Now you don't have employees. Now you don't have this. Now you don't have that. Now your bills are coming up because even though you were off for about a month or two or whenever the shutdowns were, guess what? Those bills never ceased. So if you're not pulling in revenue or anything that's going to help supply that, well, then you're screwed. Then they all went bankrupt. It's all because somebody said something or tried to pressure them. It's like, dude, what are they going to do? What is the worst that they're going to do? When I had Department of Health in Colorado try to tell my employee, you know, because we had people that would come into our building, we weren't wearing masks, so they called the police. Then my buddies at the police department would give me a call laughing, saying, hey, we just got a complaint that you guys won't wear masks. And I was like, well, obviously you guys aren't doing shit. It's like, no, we can't, but, you know, just know that there's people out there that are complaining. I said, I don't care. Their business it's my business. It's not theirs. What is under my roofs that I'm paying for matters to me. It's not up to them. So when that happened, one of them told Department of Health, and I said, and so all of a sudden we had some people come from Department of Health. I said, okay, so what jurisdiction you guys have? Well, and they tried to keep saying this stuff. I said, no, you don't. These four walls are mine. To that curb is mine. To those outside those parking lots is mine. And even across the street, the buildings I got over there, those are mine. You guys have no jurisdiction over those. I said, so if you guys come back here again, and I had one of my cop buddies that just came down, you know, when he was also in the area, so he came and talked to me. And I said, hey, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to get down here. I said, I'm going to trespass any person who has with the Department of Health if they come here. And so that's what he did. And I never, after that happened, had any fallback from that at all.
Wild story.
Yeah, but I trespassed them. And then I told them if they were to continue this, if I was to get phone calls, then what I was going to do is get a restraining order because it's harassment, which is legally what it is. And then all of a sudden, if they try to do anything or pursue it, then guess what? They're subject to that restraining order, which guess what that means? They get in trouble, the whole company. And then guess what? I've got brilliant attorneys who could have sued the shit out of them too. And I never got to that point.
That is an awesome story.
People don't think about it. They just put weight into other people who really are just trying to scare you because they're fucking, because they think they got power. They think they've got all this control now because I'm Department of Health and all that. I don't give a fuck. What are you going to do? Let's go out back. You ain't going to be able to do shit there because you're coddled up in your fucking office. You don't like to fucking fight for anything. You're just used to shit getting handed to you. All right, brother, man. It's good chatting with you as usual.
For sure, man. You already know. I'll definitely get in contact with you again if something comes up or, you know, we need to talk or whatever. Definitely.
Yeah, get in touch with me, man. You got my email.
Yep, for sure. Later, man.
All right. Have a good night, buddy.